The first time I saw the red thread, I thought it was copper wire. Fine gauge stuff, maybe from the ancient wiring in the walls of my cramped apartment above Joe's auto repair. I'd just wrenched my knuckles bloody tightening a seized alternator bolt on a '78 Ford pickup downstairs, and my hands were throbbing, slick with grease and a smear of my own blood. I ran the hot tap over them, hissing as the water hit raw skin. And there it was. A thin, shimmering crimson line, impossibly bright against the grime, emerging from the ragged scar bisecting my left thumb. A souvenir from a slipping box-end wrench years ago. "Damn it," I muttered, scrubbing harder with the sliver of gritty soap. Just what I need, more crap embedded in me. But the soap didn't touch it. The water flowed around it. It wasn't in the scar. It was coming out of it, solid, cold. A shiver, unrelated to the draft whistling under the ill-fitting door, scraped down my spine. It didn't hurt. It existed. An intrusion. A silent, stubborn fact. That was a month ago. Now, the damn thing was thicker. Thicker than a guitar string. It pulsed with a faint, internal light, like neon bleeding under skin. It snaked from my scarred thumb, ignored my calloused palm, and dove straight through the peeling linoleum floor. It didn't just sit there. It pulled. A constant, insistent tug, like a hook lodged somewhere deep behind my ribs, reeling me westward. Always westward, towards the skeletal remains of the old gantry steel mill on the river's edge. The vibration was constant now, a low hum settling into my bones, making my teeth ache. My left hand felt alien, heavy, connected to something vast and indifferent. Sleep became fractured. Dreams were crimson highways stretching into rust-colored darkness. I tried everything. Wire cutters snapped. Angle grinder sparks just danced off it, filling the garage with the stink of ozone and frustration. A blowtorch? Worse. The thread screamed inside my skull. A silent, high-pitched whine that left me retching into an oil drain. I became a ghost in my own garage. Jobs piled up. Joe grumbled about deadlines. My eyes kept drifting to the floor where the thread vanished. The pull was morphing from a tug to a leash. A leash I was terrified to follow and terrified to snap. One rain-lashed Thursday, the pull became a violent jerk, like a dog yanking its chain. I stumbled, dropping a lug nut into the pit below the hydraulic lift. The thread flared, burning cold against my palm. It vibrated with a new sensation, not panic, but a deep, resonant hunger. Ancient, ravenous. "Fine," I rasped, grease coating the word. "Fine, you bastard." Fear tasted like engine oil and stale coffee. I grabbed my battered leather jacket, pulled a wool cap low. The thread glowed defiantly through the worn leather of my work glove. Pointless to hide it. Pointless to pretend. I locked the garage door, the heavy clang echoing in the damp alley. Then I followed the red highway out into the grey, pissing rain. The thread ignored sidewalks. It cut through chain-link fences topped with barbed wire, across weed-choked vacant lots filled with broken glass and the skeletons of discarded appliances, straight towards the hulking silhouette of the gantry mill. Rain lashed my face, mingling with cold sweat. The thread phased through crumbling brick walls, rusted I-beams, a startled rat that scurried into a drain pipe. It was a relentless, crimson laser pointing towards the heart of the decay. The main mill building loomed, a cathedral of industrial ruin. Windows shattered, brickwork stained black with decades of soot, huge doors hanging off hinges like broken teeth. The thread led me to a smaller attached structure, the old foreman's office maybe. Its roof sagged dangerously, The thread plunged straight through its boarded-up door. I stood before it, rain dripping off my cap. The hunger radiating from the other side was a physical pressure now, a gnawing emptiness that echoed sickeningly in my own gut. This was it, the source of my torment, my fate. The word felt like slag in my mouth. I shoved the rotten door. It groaned, resisted, then gave way with a shower of splinters and dust. The smell hit me like a physical blow. Not decay exactly, rust, ozone, the thick, cloying scent of old machine oil. And underneath it, that same resonant hunger, amplified 100-fold. It filled the small dark space. The thread blazed, cutting through the gloom. It didn't connect to a person. It didn't connect to anything alive. It plunged into the floor. No, not the floor. Into a thick, viscous pool of something dark that shimmered with a faint, internal crimson light, mirroring the thread itself. The pool occupied the center of the room, maybe 6 feet across, its surface unnaturally still, like congealed blood mixed with engine sludge. It seemed to absorb the weak light filtering through a broken skylight. The pull intensified, a painful yank from my thumb towards that pool. The hum in my bones became a deep, resonant drone that vibrated my fillings. The hunger wasn't emanating from the pool. It was the pool. And it was focused on me, on the thread, on the life force humming through it. Sweet hell, I breathed, taking an involuntary step back. My boot slipped on the grimy concrete. This wasn't a soulmate. This was a trap, a cosmic leech. The surface of the pool rippled, slowly, deliberately. Shapes formed beneath the viscous surface, not faces. Impressions. The twisted silhouette of a man caught in machinery. The agonized arch of a back, a hand clawing uselessly at nothing. They swirled, merged, dissolved. Ghosts trapped in the sludge, their final moments echoing in the pool's silent scream. The gantry mill hadn't just closed. It had consumed workers, accidents, lives snuffed out in its iron jaws, and their essence, their terror, their final spark. It had pooled here, festered, grown hungry. The red thread of fate hadn't led me to love. It had led me to a landfill for lost souls, and it wanted to add mine to the collection. The pull became almost unbearable, threatening to drag me off my feet towards that glistening moor. The vibration wasn't just in my bones now. It felt like my very marrow was shaking loose. Panic, cold and sharp, sliced through the dread. Cut it. The thought was primal. Cut it now. My eyes scanned the derelict office frantically. Rotted desk, collapsed filing cabinet, shattered glass. And then I saw them, propped against the far wall, coated in dust and grease, but unmistakable. A pair of heavy-duty bolt cutters, industrial grade, jaws capable of shearing through half-inch rebar. A relic left behind, like everything else. The pool seemed to sense my intention. The pull intensified violently. The shapes beneath the surface writhed faster, pressing against the viscous film, mouths open in silent, desperate screams. The hunger sharpened, a psychic knife scraping against my mind. Mine. I lunged, not towards the pool, towards the bolt cutters. My gloved fingers closed around the cold, greasy handles. The weight was solid, reassuring, real. I turned, hefting them, facing the pool and the thread humming taut between us. The cutters felt like the only anchor in a drowning world. The thread vibrated, a high-pitched whine of protest now layered over the deep drone. The pool's surface churned violently. The pull became a physical force, trying to wrench the cutters from my grasp, trying to pull me forward. My boot slid on the greasy floor. I planted my feet, bracing against the tide of unnatural hunger. There was no negotiation, no understanding, just predator and prey, and I refused to be the next ghost in the sludge. I opened the jaws wide. They gleamed dully in the gloom. I positioned them around the thick, humming red cord, inches from where it emerged from the scar on my thumb. The point of connection, the point of vulnerability, mine or the pool's. I squeezed. The resistance was immense, like cutting through a live power cable encased in concrete. The bolt cutter shrieked in my hands, the vibration threatening to shatter my wrists. Sparks, real, physical sparks, flew where the hardened steel jaws met the impossible thread. The light within the thread flared blindingly crimson. The pool roared. A soundless, psychic wave of pure fury and denial that slammed into me, staggering me back a step. The shapes beneath its surface contorted in agony, but the jaws bit, slowly, inexorably, driven by terror and the desperate strength of a man who fixes broken things for a living. With a sensation that wasn't sound, but a sickening internal snap, the thread parted. Not cleanly, not silently. The severed end attached to my thumb didn't retract. It unraveled violently, like a snapped steel cable whipping back. Crimson filaments, glowing and sizzling, exploded backwards into the scar. A white-hot agony, worse than any wrench slip, worse than any burn, seared up my arm into my shoulder, exploding behind my eyes. I screamed, the sound raw and lost in the derelict space. I dropped the bolt cutters. They clanged on the concrete, the sound swallowed by the sudden, absolute silence. The hum was gone. The pool was gone. The psychic hunger vanished like a blown fuse. I clutched my left hand to my chest, gasping, tears blurring my vision. The pain was receding, replaced by a profound numbness spreading from the scar outwards. I forced myself to look. The thread was gone, severed. But the scar, it was different, wider, angrier. The edges seemed frayed, raw, and embedded deep within the puckered tissue, like grit trapped in a wound, were dozens of tiny, glimmering crimson filaments. Like the frayed end of the thread had burrowed in, not out. A terminus, a scar within a scar. On the floor, the severed end of the thread that had plunged into the pool withered instantly. It shriveled, darkened to the color of dried blood, and dissolved into the viscous sludge like salt in water. The pool gave one final sluggish ripple. The trapped shapes beneath the surface stilled, fading back into the murk. The resonant hunger was gone, replaced by a hollow, chilling emptiness. Just cold oil and forgotten death. The silence was absolute. No hum, no pull. No connection to the ravenous void. Just the drumming rain on the sagging roof, and the numb, hollow ache radiating from my hand. I flexed my fingers. They moved, but the feeling was distant, muted, like touching the world through thick leather. The scar throbbed dully, a constant, cold reminder. I looked at the bolt cutters lying on the greasy floor, then at the silent, ominous pool. I'd cut the thread. I'd broken the connection. But the frayed, glowing filaments buried deep in my scar felt like something else entirely. Not an end, a different kind of tether. A silent, cold anchor embedded in my flesh. The red thread of fate was severed, but its stain, its echo, was now part of me. I turned and walked out into the rain, leaving the gantry mill to its hollow silence. My left hand hung heavy and numb at my side, the scar pulsing with a cold, alien light only I could see. The price of freedom wasn't pain. It was this hollow silence, and the chilling knowledge that a piece of that hungry void was now sewn into my skin. forever. Cruel harmony. The headaches started after the accident, not the crash itself. The crumpled fender of my delivery van was fixed in a week, but the after. The silence in my cramped apartment that rang louder than the city outside. The way sunlight felt like sandpaper on my eyes. Doctor called it post-concussion syndrome. Gave me pills that turned the world cotton wool soft, but did nothing for the jagged shards of pain stabbing behind my left temple. Then I heard her. It was a Tuesday, grey and sleeting. I was hunched in a doorway, trying to shield my throbbing head from the noise of Market Street, when the music sliced through the urban drone. A violin, not some busker's scratchy folk tune, but something liquid. Notes that flowed like dark honey, twisting through the damp air, finding the raw nerve of my headache and wrapping around it, not crushing, but holding it. The pain didn't vanish, but it eased, became manageable, like a clenched fist slowly relaxing. I followed the sound, past steaming food carts smelling of grease and cumin, past the clatter of closing shops. She stood under the awning of older world curios, a narrow shop crammed with dusty wonders. Tall, slender, draped in a long charcoal coat that swallowed the light. Her face was obscured by a fall of dark hair, but her hands moved over the violin with impossible grace, drawing out that soul-deep, pain-dulling melody. A single, impossibly thin, impossibly bright crimson thread seemed to glint for a split second around her little finger before vanishing. I stood there, transfixed, until the last note faded. The pain surged back, a brutal reminder. She lowered the violin, her eyes lifting. Dark, fathomless pools. They met mine, and a jolt went through me. Not electricity, but a deep resonant thrum inside my bones, echoing the violin's hum. A faint, knowing smile touched her lips. She didn't speak, just inclined her head slightly towards the shop door before turning and melting into the crowd. The next day, the headache was a jackhammer. Desperate, I went back. She wasn't there. Defeat tasted like cold ash. But as I turned to leave, the door to Old World Curios creaked open. An elderly woman with eyes like polished obsidian and skin like crumpled rice paper stood there. Mrs. Cho, the faded nameplate read. "You felt it," she stated, her voice a dry whisper like autumn leaves skittering on stone. Not a question. Felt what? My voice was rough. The red thread. She beckoned me inside. The shop smelled of sandalwood, aged paper, and something faintly metallic. Shelves groaned under porcelain dragons, intricate brass scales, jars of unidentifiable roots. It binds you, fate's tether, strongest at the little finger. She tapped her own wrinkled pinky. I saw a thread around hers, just for a second. Mrs. Cho nodded slowly. You see, because you are bound, she is your destined one. The red thread connects souls across lifetimes. A beautiful story. But her eyes held no warmth, only a deep, unsettling gravity. It stopped the pain, I confessed, the vulnerability sharp in my throat. Her music. Ah, Mrs. Cho's gaze sharpened. Yin and yang, balance, your pain, her music. One feeds the other. She moved behind a counter cluttered with jade figurines. But beware, delivery man. The thread seeks harmony, yes, but sometimes the balance is cruel. I found her again 2 days later, playing under a different awning. This time, I approached as the final note hung in the frosty air. She didn't smile this time, just looked at me, those dark eyes seeing through me. "You came back," she said. Her voice was like her music, low, smooth, unsettling. The music, it helps. The admission felt dangerous. A ghost of that knowing smile returned. It does more than help, doesn't it? It quiets. She held out her hand, palm up. Not for money. An invitation. Come. Walk. It became a ritual. I'd find her. We'd walk the quieter streets as dusk bled into night. She rarely spoke, but she'd play. And as the music wove around us, the jagged edges of my headache smoothed, replaced by a profound, almost narcotic calm. The pain wasn't gone. It was transformed into a deep, resonant hum that vibrated in my marrow, in sync with her bow on the strings. It felt sacred, necessary. The red thread, a lifeline. But Mrs. Cho's warning echoed. The balance is cruel. I started noticing the cost. After our walks, a profound exhaustion would slam into me, deeper than any fatigue from hauling packages. My reflection grew gaunt, shadows pooling under my eyes like bruises. My hands sometimes trembled, yet she seemed to bloom. Her playing grew more intense, more vibrant. Her skin gained a luminous quality. Her eyes burned brighter. The music wasn't just easing my pain, it was feeding on my vitality, draining my yang to fuel her yin. The harmony was parasitic. The realization hit me like ice water down my spine during one of our walks. The music swelled, washing away the familiar headache, replacing it with that sedating hum. But this time, I felt it. A subtle pull deep inside my chest, a vital warmth flowing outwards, down an invisible tether I now knew anchored to my little finger. It flowed towards her, feeding the dark fire in her eyes as she played. The red thread wasn't just connecting us, it was siphoning me. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through the musical haze. I stumbled, breaking the rhythm of our walk. The violin screeched to a halt. "What is it?" Her voice was sharp, devoid of its usual smoothness, annoyed. I need to stop." My voice sounded weak, thready. "I don't feel well." Her eyes narrowed. The faintest shimmer of crimson seemed to flicker around her little finger. The pull intensified, a sudden, greedy yank deep in my core. She needed more. "Nonsense," she murmured, raising the violin again. "The music helps. Listen." "No." The word tore out of me, fueled by raw survival instinct. I turned and ran, not looking back. The discordant screech of the violin followed me, sharp as broken glass, morphing into a silent psychic snarl of fury that vibrated down the invisible thread, jolting my little finger like an electric shock. I didn't go home. I went straight to Old World Curios. Mrs. Cho was dusting a delicate blue and white vase. She took one look at my pale, sweating face and the tremor in my hands and sighed. "It feeds her," I gasped, leaning against the counter. "The music, it takes from me." Mrs. Cho nodded slowly, unsurprised. "The thread binds, but not all bonds are kind. Some souls seek only to take, to balance themselves upon the ruin of another." She rummaged under the counter and pulled out a small, unglazed clay bowl. "Yin and yang must be in harmony. Her yin grows strong, fed by your draining yang. You must disrupt the balance, tip the scales." "How?" "Introduce discord, an element that repels her essence, something sharp, sour, overpowering." She placed a small, wrinkled brown root in the bowl. "Ginger, the fiercest kind, wild, not the tame root in your supermarket." She added a pinch of iridescent blue powder that smelled like ozone and crushed beetles, and cooling poison for imbalance. She ground the mixture with a stone pestle, the sound harsh in the quiet shop. Eat this, all of it, now while the thread still vibrates with her anger. It looked like dirt and smelled like chemical fire and bitter earth. I didn't hesitate. I scooped the foul paste into my mouth. It burned like acid, sourness exploding on my tongue, a shocking medicinal coal spreading down my throat. I gagged, tears streaming, but forced it down. The effect was instantaneous. The phantom pull from my little finger vanished, replaced by a sudden, violent repulsion. A wave of pure, acidic dissonance surged down the invisible tether, not from me, but towards her. Somewhere, not far away, a violin string snapped with a sound like a dying shriek. The psychic connection didn't sever with a snap, but with a sickening unraveling. I felt it deep inside, a vital stolen warmth rushing back into me, a sudden shocking clarity banishing the lingering fog of the music's thrall. Simultaneously, I felt a wave of cold, sour revulsion echo back down the line, followed by a silent cry of pure, outraged dissonance. The red thread, the beautiful, terrible tether of fate, didn't break. It dissolved, like smoke in a gale. The constant low-level hum in my bones ceased. The phantom ache in my little finger was gone. Only the memory of the sour paste and the echo of that snapped string remained. Mrs. Cho took the empty bowl. Harmony is not always peace, delivery man. Sometimes it is silence. She gave me a small, sad smile. The thread is gone. Your pain. It may return, but it will be your pain, not hers to feed upon. The headaches did come back. Less severe, somehow more honest. Mine. I never saw the violinist again. Sometimes, walking down a quiet street at dusk, I think I hear a faint, discordant scrape, like a bow dragged carelessly across a single broken string. It doesn't soothe. It just is. A cold reminder of the red thread's price and the sour taste of freedom. The silence now is entirely my own. Indigo snakeskin. The dead sparrow lay on grandmother's windowsill, one eye milky, the other reflecting the low winter sun. Its tiny claw was tangled in a strand of impossibly bright crimson thread, thinner than silk, stronger than steel. I knew what it was. Hongshan, the red string. Grandmother had whispered of it while burning mugwort over my cradle. It binds souls across lifetimes. Never cut it, child. Never. But grandmother was ashes now, and the thread was mine. It didn't emerge from my finger. It infested. It was in the steam rising from my morning tea, forming a single coiling red line before vanishing. It was the crack in the bathroom mirror at 3 a.m., bleeding crimson light. It was the single, perfect red hair I found knotted around the stem of every white chrysanthemum left on my doorstep last Tuesday. Omens, traceries of a bond I never chose. My reflection began to change, subtly at first, a flicker of another face beneath my own in shop windows, sharp cheekbones, eyes dark as drowned ink. Then the whispers started, not voices, pressures, against my sternum when I tried to sleep, against my temples when I tried to think. A silent, resonant demand, acknowledge, complete. I found the first box on my porch at dawn, plain brown paper, no postmark. Inside, nestled in black silk, a single dried lotus pod, its holes meticulously threaded with that same glowing crimson filament. It pulsed faintly, warm as a heartbeat against my palm. The pressure in my chest tightened, a psychic fist. The next box held a child's porcelain doll, one arm missing. A red thread stitched its lips shut. The pressure became a throb. The third box contained a tarnished bronze mirror, Han Dynasty maybe, cold as a glacier. My reflection showed only the stranger's face now. A woman robed in indigo, her expression carved from jade, unblinking, expectant. Around her left wrist, a complex knot of red thread glowed. The throb became an ache deep in the marrow. She wasn't across lifetimes. She was waiting in the mirror. Her longing wasn't love. It was possession, a debt etched in fate's ledger. Grandmother's warning curdled in my memory. Never cut it. But she hadn't told me how to survive it. The demand solidified. 1. Burn mugwort at the crossroads at moonrise. I did. The smoke coiled into a perfect crimson helix before vanishing upwards. The ache lessened. For an hour. 2. Leave 3 pomegranates beneath the oldest willow by the river. I did. They were gone by dawn, replaced by 3 perfect red threads coiled like sleeping snakes. The pressure behind my eyes lessened. For a morning. 3. Wear the indigo robe. It appeared folded on my bed, rough spun, smelling of ancient looms and temple incense. I put it on. It fit as if tailored for my bones. The face in the mirror nodded. The ache became a low, resonant hum. Harmony or surrender. The final demand came not in a box but in a dream. The woman stood in a moonlit courtyard paved with cracked jade. A pair of ancient, blunted bronze shears lay between us. The knot must be tied, her voice echoed, not in sound, but in the vibration of the thread now humming beneath my skin, woven through my nerves. Not cut, tied, complete the circle, become. This wasn't romance, this was an annexation. The red thread wasn't connecting 2 souls, it was replacing mine with hers. A cosmic bureaucracy demanding its paperwork be finalized. My life, my body, just vessels for a bond signed in celestial ink millennia ago. I awoke gasping, the taste of temple dust in my mouth. The bronze shears lay cold on my pillow. Moonlight bled through the window. The mirror stood on the dresser. Her face was clearer now. Mine was fading, like ink in water. The hum was a physical presence filling the room, vibrating the floorboards. The final knot awaited. Grandmother said, never cut. She never said never shatter. I didn't reach for the shears. I picked up the heavy bronze mirror. The woman's eyes widened slightly. The hum hitched, a discordant note. I saw it then, a flicker of fear in those ancient, drowning dark eyes. She needed the ritual. She needed the acknowledgement. The thread demanded completion, but it could be disrupted. I didn't hesitate. I smashed the mirror against the stone hearth. Not once, again and again. Jagged shards flew. The reflective surface exploded into 1,000 fragments, each shard reflecting not her face, not mine, but splintered chaos. Shards of ceiling, floor, moonlight, and a single, severed, fraying end of crimson thread glowing in each piece before winking out. The psychic snap wasn't sound. It was a silent implosion. The humming ceased instantly. The pressure vanished. The ache disappeared. The indigo robe felt suddenly heavy, alien, like a discarded snakeskin. I looked down at my hands. No thread, no glow, just trembling flesh. In the largest remaining shard of mirror at my feet, I saw only my own face. Pale, shocked, streaked with sweat and soot, but mine. Utterly, blessedly alone. The cost wasn't blood, it was silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence after a standing wave collapses. the silence of a connection violently, irreparably voided. I had shattered the vessel of the bond. I hadn't cut the red thread. I had shattered its reflection, its point of anchorage in this world. The next morning, a final box sat on the porch. Inside, nestled in black silk, 1,000 tiny shards of bronze mirror, cold and inert. No crimson light pulsed within them, just dust and the chilling echo of a destiny unmade. The red thread remained, perhaps, somewhere in the fabric of fate, but its path to me was now a labyrinth of broken glass, reflecting nothing but the empty sky. The harmony was shattered. All that remained was the quiet and the terrifying freedom of being utterly, irrevocably untethered.